See, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, Sam.
Here.
Sue Sardet here. Rod Charles, absent. Dorothy Johnson. Gino is absent. Pete Schultz. Here. Susan Scher, absent. Regina, absent. And Elgin.
Here.
Approval of the proposed agenda.
A second.
We have a motion by Johnson, supported by Nichols. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Public comment? Good. Okay. Go to the podium.
Welcome, Steve.
Welcome.
Take a deep breath.
I know.
Decompress after the wonderful drive.
It was nice to meet you all. I'm sorry that I was making very good time. I've been on the road since 12 o'clock from Cleveland, and
Wow.
there was some traffic. It wasn't too bad, but once I got past Comerica Park, it turned into a disaster. It's been a nightmare ever since. So.
Yes.
I know, it is. Unfortunately. If you can just take a moment and tell us about yourself,
Sure.
personally and professionally.
Certainly. So I'm a 2010 graduate of Eastern Michigan University. I have a master's degree in urban planning, certificate in historic preservation. I did a lot of my early planning work with the city of Jackson as an intern, worked 2 years with Two Rivers Regional Council, which is a regional planning office in Quincy, worked a number of adaptive reuse projects, historic preservation, a little bit of streetscape improvements. Due to budgetary constraints, that position was cut. I ended up in Cleveland for the next 3 years or so. Worked at the CDC level, so I had a good dose of city planning at the parcel level. Worked on a lot of housing rehab programs, storefront renovation program, and served the Southeast District Design Review as a representative. From there, I had an opportunity in the city of Zanesville. I've been working on larger projects, but fewer of them, neighborhood revitalization, downtown revitalization districts, things of that nature. DRD is new legislation under House Bill 233, which is actually modeled after Michigan's DDA law, which went into effect, I believe, in 1980. So this is very new to Ohio, but nevertheless, this was one of the very first cities doing this. So I felt that there was a good opportunity. We're just actually completing the economic development plan for the DRD for the city of Zanesville. When I learned about the position at Oxford, I thought that this would be a great opportunity, give me an opportunity possibly to come back home to my home state, go blue. I'm not a Wolverine, so I'll take the fifth on that one.
Michigan State people.
But I am from Oakland County. I'm very familiar with the area, Palace, Auburn Hills, of course. Red Naps was a favorite of mine a dozen years ago or so. I have a couple of friends who live here. My wife, my fiance at the time was now my wife, actually. Her matron of honor actually lives in Davison, so we are generally from the area. I do have some knowledge of the Oakland County Main Street program. I know that it's separate from the national program, as there was a conflict a number of years ago. So that's it in a nutshell, a 2-minute version.
Awesome. Awesome.
Stephen, what type of responsibilities do you currently have?
So I primarily have 4 responsibilities, but I'll start with maybe my lowest priority, which is the Cool and Connected program. That was a grant that we received from Smart Growth America to bring 100 gigabit per second broadband into the city of Zanesville. We got through the planning process. That was a 3-day planning event where we brought folks from the Appalachian Regional Commission and folks from Washington, D.C., Smart Growth America, as well as other regional partners. My primary task was to organize that event and kind of coordinate a 3-day event where folks had the opportunity to tour the city and kind of get an understanding of the area and its challenges, and then to develop a plan around that. And now we're working on funding for the implementation, the design and the funding part of it. And the second part, the responsibility that I have is the Brighton redevelopment plan, which is a south side neighborhood that is very distressed. I'm also working on a entertainment and revitalization corridor for the downtown, which basically expands the number of liquor licenses, provided that the tenants or the partners have net gross sales of 70% food. That's a law in Ohio. So you can actually expand that number. It's one additional liquor license for every 5 acres, and the design of that is to bring in restaurants that serve liquor to kind of strengthen the economic activity downtown. And then my most important endeavor, I should say responsibility, is the DRD. So it requires one or more historic preservation projects, either nationally listed, locally designated, or eligible, as defined by the National Trust and the state SHPO office, Heritage Ohio. And then from there, a 10-acre parcel district that has been delineated by a steering team to redevelop downtown using a TIF, kind of a TIF model.
Gotcha.
Very good.
If you could change anything in your present work environment, what would it be, and then why?
I think one of the big things is bringing together stakeholders. That's one of them. There's probably a dozen more. Lack of infill development is a challenge. There seems to be a debate in smaller towns, and Zanesville is no different, that there's not enough parking, but when I walk through Zanesville, I see a ton of infill space with parking lots that have no cars in them. So take your pick. There's a bit of a challenge there. I mean, I think the higher density and the more mixed use that could be in the city of Zanesville and so forth, there are very creative ways of designing mixed uses to complement people who want to live, work, and shop and play 24/7. So I think that would.
I've got an easy one for you, Steve. Why do you think you want to be the next executive director of the Oxford DDA?
Because I think, given my experience and expertise and knowledge, I'm a very good problem solver. I'm not an expert at anything and don't profess to be an expert at anything, but I have very strong historic preservation background knowledge. I'm good at finding economic incentives to kind of tie in the economic development with the preservation to kind of promote mixed use and development. I work in a larger town. I've only been at Zanesville for 7 months, but my prior experience to that was good preparation. I think this would almost be a shoe-in. I think I would be a very good candidate, if
Awesome.
not the best.
Awesome.
What do you believe your strongest asset or work trait is as an employee?
I think being able to listen and understand different kind of divergent points of view as well, and kind of putting the pieces of the puzzle together, kind of connecting the dots. Yeah. I'm very good at reaching out and being very resourceful and finding the people who have the information that I need to solve a problem.
Awesome. And likewise, what areas might you like to improve in?
I've always I always think there's always room for improvement no matter what you do. I think GIS is a very good skill. I know, Oxford is a small city, so a full-blown GIS program would probably not be necessary because the village probably handling the county, of course, would be good assets there, but I think that's one of them. Getting good at the research end of the Esri products. I don't know, my handwriting could always be better. I think and then broadening my knowledge, of course. I mean, coming from Cleveland, and of course, I grew up in Livonia, Michigan. Oxford is a small town to me, really, but I think given my skill set, I would probably do pretty good, actually.
Awesome. And if your friends were to describe your personality, what would they say? Both good and bad? Both
Tenacious, funny, outgoing, witty, bad side. Do I have to answer that one? I don't know. I have tendencies maybe to be a little impatient at times.
Steve, what motivates you in your job and in your career?
The big picture, being able to see the before and after. When I see a distressed or dilapidated building or historic structure, or even an empty lot, and kind of being able to see and envision what it would look like after, I think that's what motivates me, that drives me. You can talk to Dana Matz with Zanesville Downtown Association. You can call him in 10 minutes, and he'll attest to that.
Awesome.
What types of experiences do you have in using the following computer applications? BS&A, accounting, software, MS Word, Excel, Publisher, Outlook, and others, if you would elaborate.
Okay, so you said MS, Outlook, okay, Outlook,
Accounting.
Publisher, and
BSNA.
Publisher and MS Outlook, or any other.
MS Outlook and B, I thought I heard BSNA.
Yes.
Yes.
BS&A.
BS&A, accounting software,
Sure.
MS Word, MS Excel, MS Publisher, and MS Outlook.
Word above average, Excel advanced, Outlook advanced, Publisher very good to advanced, PowerPoint excellent or superb. BSNA, I don't know, but I've used the Quicken software, which has a lot of the same similar features. I was treasurer for a group called Quincy Preserves when I lived there, and that is the software we use. So I have not used BSNA. Probably have to become acclimated to it, but I don't see that as a challenge. I was a math teacher for 10 years, so
Okay, you're pretty familiar with accounting methods.
yes.
Okay.
Okay.
One other thing, what about Facebook? Do you use Facebook or Twitter or? do you-
Religiously.
Religiously?
Not Twitter, but Facebook.
Okay, you find it advantageous?
Yes,
Okay,
I really do. I also, search engine marketing too, I think is very good too for promoting downtown. Using your website, connecting it with SES tools, I think is very valuable, but Facebook is probably better.
One other question I have, are you familiar with development of web pages?
Yes, in fact,
Or-
I developed the Buckeye Shaker Square Development website,
Very good, thank you.
certainly.
What types of experience do you have in accounts payable, receivable? And you did allude already to that you use Quicken for your accounting software before.
So, I mean, as far as spreadsheets, I do spreadsheets. I mean, I'm very fluid with spreadsheets. BSNA, like I mentioned, I was in charge of managing the funds for the Quincy Preserves. We used to do home tours, and we used to run about $5,000 and for every home tour. And I was responsible for counting the money and handling the cash and making deposits and timely withdrawals. I was responsible for all of the cash handling, all of the accounting. I also managed two housing development programs with Buckeye Shaker, and each were, one was $100,000 and one was $150,000 program. So I had to very, very carefully work with our accounting department to make sure their books were on track, and I did that for 2 consecutive years.
So Steve, you semi-alluded to this already, but let me ask you specifically your prior experience in developing and managing specifically budgets.
So in terms of budgets, I managed and created budgets for EDA, for our operating budget with Two Rivers Regional Council.
Okay.
And also wrote a grant, but I've written multiple grants and developed budgets. I wrote
Okay.
the pro forma for the 600 main block for the project in Zanesville, our historic preservation development catalyst, which was the requirement. So I actually put together the pro forma for that.
Okay.
So, but all of my grants, all of our budgeting, EDA, $47,000 grant in 2012. I got that on accident because my supervisor had to go in the hospital, so I was boss for 30 days.
Oh, okay, gotcha. So you were in control of that grant.
Department.
Okay, great. Thank you.
What would your perfect relationship with a board member or board of directors look like?
I think any board member, who is maybe not so set in their ways, but open to new ideas and willing to maybe try something that hadn't been tried before, or maybe look at a problem and be willing to listen to solutions, or, not, because you can't do planning, I don't think, in a vacuum. You really have to, it really requires the input of a lot of different minds from, people who understand preservation, accounting, legal, that kind, because if you don't have all those elements and you don't have a lot of different thinkers who can see a problem from different avenues, then you'll have issues, I think. So I think collectively, if people are willing to embrace new ideas and keep that positive forward momentum going, then you've got a really, really strong board.
Couple things that I forgot to ask, but we've got a pretty big road project coming up in 2019, the
Yes.
M24 project?
Yes.
It's basically going to go from village limit to village limit. And village limit to village limit is our DDA district.
Yes.
Does any aspect of, the DDA is taking the lead on that? Does any aspect of that scare you? Or do you-
A lot of it does, because when I was with Buckeye Shaker Square Development, our Larchmere district was under heavy construction. They did an entire streetscape, which was about 1.5 miles long. So a lot of that was quartered through the sewer district. They put in new water lines, new sewer, sidewalks were replaced. They tore up the pavement, milled it down to the bricks and so forth. It slowed business down. I think the main thing that DDA's primary mission, I think, there, because the city and, I'm saying ODOT, it's MDOT here, because we're used to saying ODOT. I think a lot of that is coordinated, through state and local departments. I think DDA's role in that is making sure traffic circulation is flowing, that the sidewalks are open, that the businesses, it's promulgated to the general public that the businesses are still open and that the lights are still on. And then I'm not sure where you're at in terms of the design phase, but a streetscape without good design can be a wonderful idea, but it could be catastrophic depending on how the outcome. I mean, placement of trees is very important, signage, bump outs, curb cuts, lighting, benches, all of that is important, because you don't want to have a bad design where people can't see stores and trees are obstructing things. And Bob Gibbs was my mentor in that. He came to Eastern, and I've heard him talk a number of times, so
Yeah.
we talked about that on the phone.
Yeah, he's excellent. And then I think we told you about our, we've applied for and received a grant for the historic preservation
Yes.
of the downtown.
Yes.
And so managing that, the state or SHPO is going to pay for the whole thing, SHPO. But there's still going to be a lot of work to do that, so is there any problem with that?
So, do you know which grant is that exactly? Do you know?
It's not individual buildings, it's going to be the historic downtown.
So you're having a consultant work kind of pair with that? Yeah, we're doing that actually right now. We're having, right now with the city of Zanesville, we have a consultant. We actually have a grant called the Pipeline Grant, which is a state SHPO office grant through the state of Ohio. But we're doing a very similar thing right now, and we've done a walkthrough with representatives from the state SHPO to kind of coordinate where they think the historic commercial and residential areas, which are going to be contributing resources and which will be non-contributing resources, and kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. So I have to write a budget for that. We have Lahan and Associates working with us right now, who's actually going to be writing the nomination, but we're kind of coordinating the funding of that. I did a similar project back in Pittsfield, Illinois, back in 2011, 2012 with the Zoe Theater. So I've done it a couple times.
Okay, great. If you were offered the job, when could you start?
Well, understand it, my wife and I have a house in Cleveland, so it'd take probably a good 30 days to kind of coordinate and pack up and relocate. So,
Okay. And do you have any questions concerning Oxford, or?
I think as we last talked, I had about 12, so we asked about the first 6.
Yeah, you did.
I'm not sure how much time we have. I think we're right at about, I'll ask what
Go
I
ahead.
have. I think the first one really is, what is in the pipeline for Oxford besides some of the things we've already talked about?
Well, like we said when we talked with you, the economic development, we have several empty buildings or properties, not necessarily that are in the floor block of downtown, but from one end of the district to the other, there's development opportunities. We have a alley project that we have about 3/4 finished, but with this MDOT program, we're hoping to get a traffic light to finish it off and open it up to M24 so we can divert some traffic that are going to be going to those businesses. So that would be another project.
You've got a new build on East Burdick.
Yes, we have a huge building project going in on East Burdick, which is the opposite direction of the road you came in. Developer is putting up 3 buildings, mixed use, office space and apartments,
Okay.
condos on top.
He has site control on that already?
He's just coming to do a preliminary site plan on building number 1.
Okay.
And that'll be at the planning commission on this next week.
And what is the DDA's role in that project?
Three-phase.
Well, it's DDA property
Final.
that we originally bought. And so we are trading parking with him, and he's gonna put the parking lots all in
Wonderful.
and then turn them over to us. What
The road
else?
project is a complete tear out, building to building, sidewalk, curb, gutter, street, infrastructure, everything throughout the entire village part of it, but it's also from the north village limit all the way to the southern limit of Orion Township.
If you went through this before, you know the implications there.
Yes, without question.
Right, we've got a big empty spot right in the middle of downtown where a building was gonna be built. And the property currently is up for sale, so that's a big thing that we'd like to get infill in there. It used to be an old hotel, and the original developer was going to replicate that. He has since sold the property to another man, and there it sits. We'd like to get that filled in. I think that we would like a better mix of business and retail,
Okay.
if we can. But I think that we are realizing that the retail has to be a specialty retail rather than just like a shoe store. It's just not gonna work because you can't afford to buy the number of shoes
Sure.
and change every season that people go to Myers and shop the malls and buy online. So we have to think about the businesses that we want here. Anybody else?
And what do you love about Oxford? I've asked, we talked already, the 3 of us, so I guess that would leave the,
Go ahead.
I'm the newest guy here. Actually, I've been in this area for about 5 years. Number one thing, of course, is the aesthetics. In the downtown, you go by and you see the park, get your attention, and the buildings. But it's the people. They have very friendly people here, families with small children and children that are growing up, a great school system, great fire department we have here, probably the best in the state, we think.
Of course.
Right, and a good police department. So, well, actually, we're covered by 2 police agencies. We've got the village police, and then we've got the township sheriff's department, who's with the Oakland County Sheriff's Department. So we're very well covered, and very little crime going on here, which is a good thing.
certainly.
I think there's a lot of pride too, this little small town. I think there's just a lot of, you know, with the football games and just the small town feel and the activities that go on at the holidays. It's just a neat feeling of old fashioned. I love that. It's kind of rare.
One thing you notice after you've lived here for a while is you just about know everybody,
Yeah.
and they know you.
Okay.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
Been here for a couple of years now. I think the part about the village of Oxford, which is located in the township of Oxford, the township of Oxford, and everybody still considers Oxford as, we're all Oxford. It's not just, you know, the Oxford Village sitting in the center of it by themselves. I mean, everybody from the township, everybody from the village has the same opinion that it's, you know, we're all one, we're all together. We draw from the 3 surrounding townships by us because basically from Metamora Township to Addison Township and even part of Brandon Township, which has basically no community at all. So I mean, we are the downtown, the community for them. So they come here to especially to dine because of the restaurants that we have and everything else, and what shopping that we do have with Myers and everything, but they come to us for the entertainment aspect of it too. So we're definitely more than just the core four corners of town. So,
Well said.
For communications, I think we got our own newspaper here, also a television station, Oxford Community Television.
That's wonderful. Where would you like to see the community be in 5 years? 10 years even?
I'd like to see all these buildings full and doing business, good business.
Sure.
And more walkability if possible downtown.
We struggle with that because we get like between 30 and 35,000 cars a day on M24, and that can be either a blessing or a curse at the same time. We struggle with being able to just walk around town because we have gravel trucks and the big delivery trucks going through, but the gravel trucks bring a lot of dirt, dust, noise. And so it's hard to figure out how you can have eating establishments out on the sidewalk with umbrellas and sit there with a coffee cup and read your paper, because maybe on a Sunday you can do that, but most other days you can't.
That was a very similar situation we had in the city of Mount Sterling when I worked in Quincy, but we covered a 5-county area. Mount Sterling was one of our projects, a town of 3,000 people, but we wrote a facade improvement grant. We did a business incubator. We moved a library. We planted trees, but that was always one of the looming things is what do you do about the hog confinement trucks that come up and down Main Street? Because they let off this, they were on their way to Beardstown, which is where the processing plant was, but they had to drive through the city of Mount Sterling. But I always thought that the smell was just enough to drive anybody away, but yet we resolved that. We had a lot of the eateries on the side streets create sidewalk seating.
Okay.
And we had them close to the building as opposed, like in Ann Arbor, they have them close to the curbside, whereas in cities like Royal Oak, they have the eating closer to the building and actually offset a lot of that too.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was actually one of my most successful projects. We talked about that on the phone last time, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
the amount of development that we were able to create as a result of all that.
And I think we're very lucky. Like I said, we have a first-run movie theater here. We get a lot of traffic from that.
Sure.
And we got a lot of great restaurants. I think now we're up to 14 or 15.
question for you, where do you see yourself in 5 years and 10 years?
Back in Michigan, working in Oxford.
Great answer.
One thing I'd like to mention too is that the township and Oxford in general, we've got some great parks here.
Yeah.
And the director of those parks, he does a fantastic job. So you want to enjoy those when you come to Oxford.
Certainly, certainly. I think that's one of the questions that I was asked in the previous interview over the phone is what kind of drives me or gets me up in the morning. I really do love downtown revitalization. It's been in my blood for a long time. I think part of that came from going to Wayne State. That's where it started. Going to school downtown and seeing the semblance of these gorgeous buildings. You saw Beaux-Arts and Italianate, but a lot of them at the time, not now, but a lot of them at the time were empty and distressed. But you could tell that there was once a very economically robust community full of a lot of money because of the detail they had put into some of these buildings. And that's kind of what that incited my interest in downtown revitalization. And
That's awesome.
I went to Quincy for a while because we were in a recession, and I went to Cleveland, and I think I've developed a lot of experiences, and I paid my dues. But I mean, it's always been in my blood. That's what fires me up.
Yeah, we also have the Polygon Trail that runs through downtown, or not downtown, but runs through Oxford. That's another challenge for us, is we'd like to somehow have signage or have a way that we can get people to walk off the trail and walk downtown, which is only like a block and a half. But we're not visible from the trail,
Certainly.
so we'd like to work on that.
And those trails, they link, with all the other trails
Yeah.
in the area. Paint Creek
Rochester
Trail,
Lake
all
Orion.
those, not just,
All the
you
way
know,
up to Lapeer
Rochester.
County.
Yep. So it's a great area to be in. One thing that we didn't mention that is that we have a fantastic library here too, fairly new. And they have activities going on all the time for families and kids. So,
The director's okay, but,
yeah, oh, that could be a problem.
That's Brian. He's the director of the library here.
Hi, Brian.
What else?
Your familiarity with Main Street, you mentioned that you were aware of it.
Yes.
You guys were kind of like developing along that same kind of line. How much experience and knowledge?
So I've actually never worked for a Main Street. I suppose if you want to call a CDC, maybe a mini Main Street. Although, working with Two Rivers Regional Council, we did partner with Main Street, a number of different Main Streets. The historic Quincy Business District was one such Main Street. Also, the city of Pittsfield in Pike County was another such. So we partner with them on fundraisers and promoting businesses within their communities. We did a number of fundraisers, and also Beardstown, we worked with Beardstown on a number of projects as well, and I am familiar with the 4-point approach. I know that's morphed over, now they have an 8-step thing that's kind of changed into in the last year and a half or so, but.
In the, whoops, I'm
Go
sorry.
ahead, that's okay.
With the DDA, what do you feel the responsibility of the DDA is in the community?
I think really promoting business, promoting economic activity, working to ensure that your historic building stock is well preserved and well connected to the economic activity, and to make sure that you're doing the best possible job in promoting economic vitality within the community. I think the DDA was ahead of itself when the legislation was written some years ago. It was ahead of, or maybe it was behind the Main Street, but I think they really work hand in hand, because you have obviously understanding that, and I think most people have to be cognizant of the fact that you can't save every historic building. You would like to, but if you can retrofit older buildings and create and envision modern technologies and uses into older buildings to help spare them, things like newer modern stores and fiber optics and modernized plumbing and modern building codes and things like that. I mean, you can at least intertwine that with some of your infill development and necessary parking and parks and green space and things. I think collectively you have to be able to envision all of that to make downtown healthy and remain viable.
I have a couple of personal questions, if you don't mind.
Okay.
You mentioned that you were married, you had to sell your home before you moved
I
here.
actually don't have to sell a house. I live in a flat on the second
okay.
floor.
All right, thanks for quantifying that. Do you have children at home now?
No.
No? Okay. And your plans will be moved to Oxford, right?
I'm not sure. It would be Oxford, or I have to really study this traffic thing a little bit harder.
Well, I think we would like to encourage you. We have lots of good property here in Holmes.
Probably Oxford would make the most amount of sense given the traffic, but just even being here 24/7, I think would be different, but it would definitely be interesting. So we've definitely considered right downtown Oxford.
Well, if you live, what you want to be doing is going north in the morning and south in the afternoon.
Certainly.
There's traffic, but it's less
Yeah.
than doing the opposite. Okay.
Is there anything else I can tell about myself, or?
Is there anything else you'd like to know?
Tell me about the streetscape a little bit more. What would you like? How would you resolve some of the traffic? Or more importantly, how would parking kind of fit into that as well?
Well, we don't want to have any loss of parking spaces on the street. That's number one. We had a streetscape plan that was done in 2012, but it was close to a $5 million project, and so it was put on the shelf and never done anything. The project with MDOT now was going to be a shelf project that was going to be like 22, 23, and we found out last year that they have moved it to 19. So what we're trying to do is we hired the firm that did the original streetscape, and we're paring it down to like a 1.2 million. And part of the reason that we can pare a lot of it down is because MDOT, our streetscape plan was gonna have to pay for everything, roads, sidewalks, et cetera. Well, MDOT is gonna do all that, so that's gonna knock off a big chunk of it. Right now, we're waiting for, AECom has been selected by MDOT to be the designer, and so we're waiting to have a meeting with them. It's supposed to be in May, but I'm gonna guess it's gonna be probably June before we actually sit down and meet with them.
And there have been meetings where we were
Yeah, we've
able
been
to
working on
input.
this for over a year.
Sure.
You know, talking about, obviously, traffic patterns. And our police chief is on there, our fire chief is on there. So we know that we're gonna have to reroute traffic. Have we got the details? No. Do we have the details on the streetscape? No, but I think we've talked about it and kind of had an idea what we want. So that's pretty much where we're at right now. We've got some sewer work that needs to be done, but that will be their side of the construction part. We're more the streetscape part.
Was the DDA planning on contributing any part of that in terms of like branding or
Well,
pavement stampings or anything?
we have put money away because we'd like to apply for a grant, and a TAP grant. And so we've got 200,000 saved for that. By the time we get ready to apply, we'd like to have 400,000. And we've been putting money away for the promotion / marketing / whatever. So as soon as we have our meetings, start meeting with AECom, then our next thing is to do the publicity and marketing part of it.
What about crosswalks and things? What are the plans, or what ideas would you have in terms of crosswalks? I know that, and the reason I asked that is because the traffic obviously at 5 o'clock is really intense on 24, but you still want business. So to ensure the safety of people crossing the streets, what would maybe an idea be that you've
Right.
discussed?
Well, we've asked MDOT for a total of 5 lights downtown. Now, whether we get them or not, but we're going to fight about it. In lieu of some of that, we have asked for crosswalks, mid-block. We want to highlight the traffic or the crossings at the one light that we have, and do something. I suggested painting it, lime green and brilliant pink, whatever. People will see it.
I don't think that one went.
But we're going to come up with something that will highlight that so that people feel safe crossing it. I don't know. Anybody else on the committee?
No, that's really what we talked about.
How do you feel about parking meters?
We used to have them. They took them all out.
Oh.
I think they'd be a hard sell to put back in.
We had that issue come up with the city that I was involved with, and they tried them, they ended up taking them back out. So I wouldn't recommend it, but
One of the solutions we did in Pittsfield was, a lot of folks there didn't like parking meters either, but they were there and they did produce some revenue. So what we did, we came up with a solution. And when you renew your license plate registration, they issued you a sticker that was good for the entire year, and you put it in your window. So if you were a resident, you didn't have to pay for parking. But if you came from out of town, you had to pay for parking, and you were subject to violations, et cetera. And Secretary of State didn't want to coordinate that, so they simply paid $1 at the local Main Street office, and they picked up their sticker there.
Oh, there you go.
Interesting.
It's an idea,
Definitely
but
an idea.
put that one on the shelf somewhere,
Sure, sure.
way in the back.
And then I saw your facade grant, actually. I thought it was interesting. I was looking at that online, and I thought that was pretty interesting. How do you coordinate design review with regard to if people want new signage or they want to do some work on the outside of their building? Do you have a design review?
yes, we do. Through the design committee, and then it comes to the full board with, our recommendation.
Okay.
We'd obviously like to put more money into it, but,
Of course, they have to conform to the ordinances and that kind of thing.
right? We do the Main Street, or the historic paint colors. We adopted that several years ago.
And that's a requirement for merchants, building owners?
If they want a grant.
Sure. Okay. All right. I don't have any other questions.
Okay.
I don't either. Thank you
Very good.
very much.
Thank you.
5:45 is stuck in traffic too.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Steve.
Nice to meet you as well. Thanks for joining.
Thank you for staying on your Friday. I know everybody's time is important and you'd probably like to get home, so I appreciate you sticking around.
Yeah, thank you. Making
You're
the trip up
welcome.
here.
Yeah. I'm especially.
Appreciate you coming. Is it Stefan or?
Steven.
Steven,
I go
okay.
by Steve.
All right, very good. Go by Steve. All right.
Nice
Nice
to meet you in
you.
person, thank you. Yes.
Appreciate it.
I know what you're after. You know, who's to say? I hired a lot of people in the past, just never know.
Looking for the pie in the sky, you know?
It comes down to it, it's gotta be to his benefit. I hate to be a constant training ground, but
That's what the fire department is.
I know, that's why I said it.
Seriously, I recruit them, I train them, get
They
them
go.
certified, I get 1 year out of them, and then they all go to get a full-time job someplace else.
Come on,
Dead serious.
I'm sure, yeah, I know.
in the fire department arena still?
Okay,
Oh,
what you
huge.
can do is just go up to the
Just like that all the
microphone
time.
there.
How are you, Susan? Good to see
I
you.
did that in business too.
Hi, Susan. How are you? Good to see you. Nice to see you.
And we should
Good one
introduce
stayed, though.
our
I
fire
had people that
chief,
stayed with
Pete
me for
Schultz,
25 years.
is on the board, and Elgin Nichols.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to
Thanks for
meet you.
coming.
Thanks for waiting as well. Appreciate that.
I did bring some ancillary materials, which are some communication pieces that I did.
Thanks.
Um,
I'll take a look and I'll pass over.
okay.
Okay. Should we do the same format?
Sure.
Sounds like a plan.
Okay. Can you just take a moment to tell us about yourself personally and professionally?
Well, my name is Suzanne Wiggins. I grew up in a small town called Montrose, which happens to be on M57, so it has a lot of similarities to Oxford, being on a major thoroughfare. I went to Central Michigan University and graduated with a Bachelor of Science degree in Interpersonal and Public Communication with a psychology minor. And then I did a year in grad school where I actually taught Speech 101 classes and enjoyed that quite a bit before leaving the university to take on my first position, which involved working with employment and training. And while I was there, I moved all the way up through the ranks to operations manager, where I was responsible for the review and recommendation of about $9 million worth of employment and training grants. So that's a major turning point in my life because I jumped from reviewing and recommending grants to actually moving into arts and culture in the nonprofit field, mostly as a grant writer and fundraiser. So I've worked with grant writing, I've worked with corporate sponsorship, with even major gift solicitation from individuals. So from there, I became the managing director of Flint Youth Theater, which was probably my biggest position to that point, where I oversaw a $1 million budget. I handled budgeting and finance. I oversaw marketing. I oversaw the facility management, which the buildings were built in the 50s, and we were going through some expansion, so dealing with asbestos abatement and removal, and all kinds of facility issues. Even just working with contractors was a big experience there, because we had added on, I want to say about 10,000 square feet to the building that it had existed since the 50s. And from there, I went to Rochester. I was the executive director of Paint Creek Center for the Arts for 7 years. It's a great organization, and it's probably best known for the Art and Apples Festival, which is Michigan's second largest outdoor art fair. And when I arrived, the festival was ranked about 100th out of the 200 best art fairs across the country, and they review about 2,000 festivals. And so it started at 100 when I arrived, and from the point that I oversaw it, we moved into like the 30s, 20s, and the year that I left, we were number 10 in the country. So, I mean, that festival was a situation where it had year-long planning, you know, booking performers, dealing with the artists, meeting for 6 months with the municipality, with all the department heads, the fire chief, police chief, DPS director, the city manager, because we had street closings and parking issues and, you know, everything that you can think of that goes involved. I mean, we averaged about 250,000 visitors during the festival weekend. And from there, I went to Keep Genesee County Beautiful, which is located in Flint, Michigan. And Keep Genesee County Beautiful was Michigan's first national affiliate of Keep America Beautiful. So it aligns itself with the same priorities of litter prevention, beautification, recycling, and worked very closely with the city of Flint, especially the Department of Transportation and Republic Services, to create campaigns to help increase recycling in the community. The city had transferred from doing rake your leaves into the street to needing to tell residents to bag their leaves. So I was the actual person that designed and helped initiate those public outreach campaigns. And that was when I really decided that I loved working for municipal government, and started my job search to find my next opportunity.
What types of responsibilities do you have in your present position?
Well, when I started at Keep Genesee County Beautiful, I was mainly hired to take care of development, which would be fundraising and marketing. So I started out redoing the organization's website. I did the monthly e-newsletter. I did annual fund or annual giving campaigns, and again, worked with the community. And because I was, all of the employees were actually not employees, they're program consultants. And so I was the only full-time consultant, so I really worked with residents and community partners from all of our program areas. So after we were kind of incorporated into Genesee County Parks and Recreation, and at that point, there was no longer a need for development and marketing. Oh, yeah. And so basically my job dealt with working with community volunteers in an adopt-a-park program, because the city of Flint had totally eliminated their parks department as of June of 2014. So we worked with residents to actually adopt and maintain about 39 parks out of the 63 parks in the city of Flint. So that was a major component, working hands-on with the volunteers, and also helping community members that were providing beautification projects, public spaces, municipal buildings, churches, schools, parks, helping to support that effort as well.
That's a good idea, too.
If you could change anything in your present work environment, what would it be? And why?
I think being in the Flint community, there's so many challenges, and I think that what I found was that there's a lack of support to residents who are just getting wanting information. And so I think more support for community outreach and just understanding that people are confused not only about their water, but so many other city services, and they would call our office. And again, since I was primarily the full-time person, I handled about 90% of the phone calls. And, you know, they would be people who had tried 7, 8 phone numbers and were just looking for someone who would help them and give them answers. So basically, that's what I would do. I'd put them on hold and go on the website and look up, you know, information in the clerk's office, or, you know, like people would call about how do I get an adoption record. You know, I would just change that there needs to be additional support to help residents that are feeling confused at this time.
Why would you like to be the next executive director of the Oxford DDA? What are your top reasons?
I think it's an exciting opportunity.
Yeah.
Again, from working with Keep Genesee County Beautiful, I think that it's the kind of work where you're excited because you know that you get to deal with the residents, you help develop the community, make it a better place. You're also working with the business owners to help grow audience, to, you know, help grow their business. There's a lot of change. You know, you have businesses that eventually might leave and new businesses that you help to come in. So I think that it would be not only exciting for Oxford to see the progression and to have some really wonderful and positive things happen, but I think just, you know, kind of being that person around town that, you know, the residents know you, the business owners know you, and they know that you're the go-to person if they need assistance, who to call.
Great, thank you.
What do you believe your strongest asset or work trait as an employee is?
My strongest work asset is that I'm great at relationship building. I'm a friendly person. I love talking to people. I love to listen. And I think building relationships, you know, being a likable person that people want to stop and chat with you, you know, it's networking. So definitely my listening skills and my relationship building.
Likewise, what areas might you want to improve in?
You know, specific to the position, I mean, I've had positions where I've had to deal with like zoning issues, and it's of interest to me, but I think that that probably would be some area that I would immediately want to grow my knowledge of, because I think that it would be so important to the work of the DDA director. So.
Awesome. And if we were to call your friends and ask them to describe your personality, what would they say, both good and not so good?
Again, I'm a very happy person. I'm a very fun person. I'm funny. So I like to always look on the positive side. In fact, driving here, there were a couple of traffic issues.
No.
Starting on Orion Road. It was backed up for about a mile. And I have been starting this practice of asking myself, and this is good because, which I had explained in my earlier interview, often just makes me laugh and feel better, because sometimes you have to really get creative to come up with an answer to that, a positive answer to that question. So definitely, my friends would probably talk about those strengths. And the things that they might not like so much is probably that I'm an optimist or that I'm positive, because sometimes people just want to, you know, they're frustrated and they want to share their frustrations, and, you know, I always try to turn it around to the positive, and, you know, sometimes that's frustrating.
Yeah.
Suzanne, what motivates you in your job and career?
Accomplishment. Definitely, I have been an overachiever my entire life. a horrible workaholic that I've been working very hard the last few years to overcome that and try to find some life balance. But it started, I mentioned this in my first interview, that right before my 5th grade year, the principal called and told me that I was a lieutenant of the safety patrol, which meant the person in charge. And from there, it was just, I never wanted to miss a day of school. I was president of the high school business club sophomore, junior, and senior year, which was completely unheard of. It went into college. I was an undergraduate teaching assistant when they started a program, and I was only a sophomore. And it was to actually help the professors teach the speech class and the large lecture classes. I was the representative to the faculty meetings to represent the student body in the department, and it just continued into my work life. It's just a feeling of accomplishment.
What types of experiences do you have in using the following computer applications? BS&A accounting software, MS Word, MS Excel, MS Publisher, MS Outlook, or any others?
I'm going to say with all the Microsoft Office software, I can't even tell you how many years, probably since it was created. I was an administrative assistant. That's how I worked through college. Back then we called it secretary. But I had to know computer software, office applications. So, I guess I'd have to say 30 years of experience with Office. And the BS&A, I happen to mention my sister is a prominent finance director, just left the city of Bloomfield Hills and has worked for other cities, and we've had many conversations about it. So I've not worked with it directly, but I do know the purpose of it and that the different components, whether it's taxes or accounting, and even when I went to Cranbrook, everybody has a customized software that you might not have a great deal of experience using, but because you've used similar software, your ability to pick up and learn it is, very fast.
You did mention earlier that you had experience with website also, right? You've developed websites or?
Yes,
Yeah.
I've oversaw that and
Excuse me.
I've handled it directly. When I got to Keep Genesee County Beautiful, the website was very static and old-fashioned, and so I completely overhauled it and brought it up so that we could do updates in-house, and it was very visual, and that changes quite frequently. So what an up-to-date website looks like, in 2 or 3 years is behind the times. So that's something that is changing constantly.
What about the social media, Facebook or Twitter? Are you active?
I handled our Facebook and Twitter accounts. Now that there's additional items like Instagram that organizations are needing to use because you want to keep up with what everybody else is using in their personal life. So yes, I have experience doing that. And actually, it's one of my favorite things because basically you're telling the story. You're sharing the great things that are happening in downtown Oxford on a daily basis. If there's an event, you're tweeting live from a concert in the park or, the Scarecrow event. You're actually, and now Facebook allows you to go live. So there's so many aspects of that would work really great for the DDA.
So you think that you can expand that ability to use Facebook, for what we need here?
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
What types of experience do you have as far as accounts payable, receivable, and what accounting software have you used before?
Well, actually, I have oversaw budgets of over $1 million for probably the past 15 or 20 years. So most of my experience hasn't been actually hands-on being doing it. It's making sure that the checks and balances are there. But I did have to, I had a business manager that retired, and while I was looking for her replacement, spent 3 months, handling all the receivables and payables. And we used a QuickBooks Professional. We were kind of a smaller organization with just 7 employees, so we didn't need an elaborate system, but I know how to do deposits and pay bills and request payments, and, we took credit card payments because we actually had a year-round art school, so, people could sign up online, and then you have to make sure that those payments get from a holding pot and are actually, taken care of through your banking system. So I've had a lot of experience with overseeing budgets.
Kind of makes me not want to ask this next question because it is about budgets, but, I do have a little bit of, knowledge of what you had previously said in our first interview. And so if you could probably reiterate that for everyone else, that would be fantastic. But the question is what is your prior experience in developing and obviously managing various budgets? And I know one of them is the theater that you mentioned previously.
Yes. And I'm just going to go back a little bit because it really started with that first career position where I was reviewing and recommending grant applications because each of those programs, they were asking for, thousands and thousands of dollars, and I had to be able to look at the budget they were proposing and their cash flow analysis and figure out whether or not they could really do what they were promising. And we were using state and federal funds, so it was very important that you weren't funding or giving grant money out to individuals that, could not fulfill their promises. So that's really where it started, and when I was the managing director at Flint Youth Theater with $1 million budget, basically I would develop the budget. I would decide, in budgeting, what you do is, as far as a nonprofit, which is similar to government but a little bit different, is that you're looking at your actuals for the past 3 years to say, okay, what's happened, what expenses, have we had, but you're also projecting out, increases in, if you're renting a building or, even postage, if you're using a meter machine, you're projecting what your new expenses are going to be for the upcoming year, and then you're monitoring it constantly because, wherever I come from a situation where your budget's prepared, but you don't necessarily have the money. You're looking at possible fundraising, like your annual fund, or like even with the festival at Paint Creek, you think you're going to have this many artists and they're going to pay this much money. And you have to constantly be in check and balance with that and be prepared for where you're going to make cuts if your revenue projections are not working out. So definitely it's something that's very active. I always had to not only get my budget approved through a board, but I had to provide monthly financial statements and explain those financial statements, why we were up, why we were down, what was creating a situation where you're even. So I've had a lot of experience with that.
Thank you.
What would a perfect relationship with your board of directors look like?
Well, actually, at Paint Creek Center for the Arts, I will say I served on boards, I've reported to boards, I've had a lot of experience with boards. And I will say that the thing that I appreciated most about my board at Paint Creek Center for the Arts is that really everyone came to the decision-making table with their career hats on. It really was about making a good business decision. It wasn't a personal decision or it was really looking at what was best for the community and what would help advance the mission of the organization. So in my opinion, but that doesn't always happen. You have a mix of individuals that come to the board through different avenues, and you just have to make the most positive experience with who your board are, who those members are. So the best thing would be that the members would come and really be there to make a good business decision.
Couple questions that we didn't have written down, but we have a big road project coming up in the year 2019. that we've been working on it for over a year and are currently working on it. Does any aspect of that scare you, or?
I think it's great. I mean, just think of when the project is done, the improvement to the village of Oxford. I think that it's great. And having gone through a very similar process in Rochester, when the downtown area was closed for an entire summer and traffic was, bypassed around town, I really get what happens at that point. And really, the biggest thing is to start communicating about it as early as possible. I mean, really, whoever your director is now, to start shaping a communication strategy for that project would be very important, because the more prepared the businesses are, the more prepared the residents are, the less complaints. It might be kind of a little happy situation that you can't even anticipate, but if people are caught off guard, they don't know what to do, they don't know where the detours are going to be, that creates a lot of frustration. And I see a lot of people coming after work on a Friday night to eat in the restaurants and things, and you definitely want to keep that pace going.
Okay. And we've applied for and received a historic district grant from SHPO, and they're going to start sometime this summer doing that. Have you ever had experience with any of that, or?
Well, not that specifically, but I've had a lot of experience with projects, and especially grant-funded projects. So I know how important it is to make sure that how the project is going is in line with what you promised, what the, grant says that you need to do. If there's reports that need to be made, they need to be made on a timely basis. So probably not specifically, but very relatable to what will be happening.
Okay. And if you were offered the job, when do you think you could start?
I definitely would start as soon as possible, like how soon the village could accommodate that, especially given the fact that you have a series in the park, and that's something that the director probably wants to be there for. I understand that there's probably some sponsorship for those concerts that need to happen right away. So I definitely think, and I understand that you've been without a director for a couple of months. So definitely I'm prepared to start as soon as the village would be prepared to have me.
Okay. And then, do you have any questions for us?
Well, again, now that there's a few more individuals here from the first interview, I would like to hear, what it is. It's obvious that there's been some great progress and momentum in the last couple years in the DDA, the downtown area. But what, other than probably helping to get through the big MDOT construction project, but what is it that you see as the next big jump that the DDA needs to take to make the village of Oxford a better place?
The village just went through and is doing their final adoption now of their new master plan. And they've changed a lot of the rezoning and everything to make it flow easier for business, for economic development, everything. So I think the rolling out of that to the public and being able to work with that, using that as a marketing tool to try to bring new businesses in. We do have vacant property, we do have vacant buildings that we're trying to fill, to work with. So I think going forward, that would be a huge, a boon to the village to get everything in process for that.
Did you have?
There are a couple of new buildings that are going to be going up too on Burdick Street soon. It's in different phases. The first phase will begin soon, but a question. You're from Montrose.
I am.
You know where Bird is at?
I do.
Ah, I was from Bird. I was also in the safety patrol, and I was a captain.
Me too.
So there you are.
We didn't have captains, but I'm sure I would have wanted to be one.
But I was just interested in that.
Yes,
I know
actually
Montrose
went to
well.
church in Burt.
Yeah. How long did you live in Montrose?
Uh,
Is that where you went to
I'm-
high
I'm-
school?
Yes, yes.
I know the town very well.
My mother worked at the Montrose State Bank.
Oh,
for
I
many,
know where the
many
bank's
years.
at, yep. I have a couple of personal questions, if you don't mind, and it's about family.
Okay.
Would you tell us something about your family? You lived in this area for quite a while, and
Well, I haven't. I actually lived in the Flint area for 20 years. I owned a house there. But I love to drive. I love to drive. And so I worked at Cranbrook while still living in Flint. The first 5 to 6 years that I worked in Rochester, I commuted from Flint and then moved to Rochester, and then 2 years later started driving the other direction. So it was just by coincidence that working in Rochester and eventually moving there, that I actually now have family that moved to the community because they have family. They have a young family, and like Oxford wanted good schools, a park to be able to get on bikes and, have an ice cream cone. So my family is kind of scattered, but mostly in the greater Detroit area, but I still have family that is in Montrose.
okay, did you say you have relatives that live in Oxford Township, or no? Did I miss
No.
that?
Not in
Rochester.
Oxford Township, yeah,
Okay.
in
And
Rochester.
you own a home in Rochester?
I don't now, because actually I owned a house in Flint, and then I sold my house in order to go to Rochester, and I wasn't, even though I was very familiar with the community, I just started renting, thinking that, well, I'll rent for a while until I kind of figure things out, and really love where I'm renting because it's right near the trails. I'm an avid bike rider, so I can in 2 minutes be in the municipal park, which hits Paint Creek Trail. I can take that trail to either Clinton River or Macomb Orchard Trail, so I'm just renting at the moment.
You do know we have a lot of trails here, and I have a trick question. Would you move
Okay.
to Oxford?
It is not a trick question because I received that question a lot when I went to Rochester, and it's funny because I actually, there were 4 female executive directors of large nonprofit organizations, and we started having a lunch. And every time we'd get together for lunch, they would say, are you going to move to Rochester? Are you going to move to Rochester? And with the Flint economy, I said, I could never get rid of my house. And they're like, okay, if there were no restrictions, if there weren't any worries or anything, would you move to Rochester? And seriously, 4 months later, I moved because it just kind of created a whole different mindset of, I'd have to, get rid of my house and, where would I live when I come here? So I think it's a great question because, I didn't know that I would move to Rochester when I started working there, but I did. So right now, I don't have any plans to move to Oxford, even though I've looked around at the rental properties in town. But I think that would be a possibility.
Okay, so the answer to that trick question is
Possibly.
probably.
Thank you.
Do you have any more questions for us?
Sure.
I don't have any more questions. Oh, did you have a
I
question?
have questions.
Okay.
Where do you feel the responsibility of the DDA director and the DDA in the village or the community is?
It's the community. It's, helping the businesses thrive and create places that the residents want to come and visit and buy from. It makes their property values go up. It's what develops a sense of community and partnership with the library and the village office and the Chamber of Commerce. I mean, it's definitely core. And I had the honor of serving on the DDA's promotion committee in Rochester the first 3.5 years before I delegated it to another employee. And, there were struggles. I mean, 10 years ago, the DDA in Rochester was not as bright and shiny as it is today. They were struggling with business owners, not necessarily wanting to stay open past 5 or to get on board with events because they didn't understand that those events bring people and audience that then have dinner or shop in their stores, and it helps grow their business to the point that they can take on employees to work those evening hours. So the DDA is critical, but it's a partner. I mean, it's not the entire process. It's a partner with the residents, with the businesses, with the other organizations in the area.
Okay, anybody else have any? Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
you.
For the opportunity.
Great to see you again.
Good seeing you. I have to admit, the legs are a little stiff.
Not a problem.
Nice meeting you.
Thanks for coming, Susan.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Anna. Thank you.
Oh, it's right here, sorry.
Materials, if you, unless you want to send them
Did you
back.
guys,
We did,
We're all
we
set.
did, well said, thank you.
Oh, do you want to keep these? I have extra copies? No. Okay. Thank you very much.
she has the happiest face. I just love her smile.
I know,
She's like sunshine.
Just kind of
Yeah.
a little surprise with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. It's kind of like an iceberg. When you dig, you find more.
That's right, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Family.
Family,
Okay.
right.
It's different than business. Yeah,
Yeah, public, I say no.
different than in business.
Yeah, it's definitely, that's a fine line.
Yeah.
Okay. I think the next thing on here is discussion.
Sure. Who wants to open it up?
Well, you interviewed her before, right? And
Yeah.
you have interviewed him before? What's your
Yeah.
thoughts on this?
Well, actually, this is the first time that I met Steve, obviously all of us, because last time was over the phone. And so, just in general, I think Steve is extremely knowledgeable.
Yeah.
I mean, he just exudes confidence, and it rolls off his tongue when you ask him a question about detail.
Right.
So I think that's really important. I do like his personality as well. I think he can get the job done, coupled with that knowledge and expertise. And I think he said it, he may have not said it today, but he used the word in his first interview, and that's resourceful. And I think he is someone who's very resourceful. You know, if he doesn't have the answer, or he can't figure it out right away, he'll get it done, you know. So that's what I like about what I've gathered from him. But I'll be honest, not trying to be a fence sitter here, I personally think that we have a very difficult time right here, because I think those are two great candidates, and that's why we brought them forward. That's my personal opinion anyway.
The only question I had, and Pete and I discussed this a little bit, but he has a master's degree, and again, are we gonna hire somebody that's gonna be gone in about 6 months? You know, whenever you hire anybody,
Yeah.
you know,
There's
that's a
always-
gamble you take.
It is, yeah.
So,
Right.
and for their
But
best
we
interest.
asked all of the people that we interviewed if they'd make a 3-year commitment, and they all did say yes.
Yeah.
Now, granted, you can say that, but,
Yeah,
and because of the M24 project, basically,
yeah.
Right.
you know,
I really like the guy's background in terms of, you know, he's had experience and well-rounded with historical,
Yeah,
reconstruction, those kind of things. He's been dealing with streetscape and reconstruction of roads and so forth. I like all those aspects that he brings to the table. I think he's a very strong candidate, you know, for this position. I like her personality. I think she's got a great personality, and she brings forth experience also in the accounting area and the financial area, and I think it's an area that we need to be concerned with,
Right.
you know, as the DDA director, and he certainly possesses that ability as well. So it is a tough decision between the two.
Yeah.
I have a tendency to lean towards him somewhat at this point, would be my opinion.
Is that part of the discussion as to what to do tonight then, Sue?
well, I guess we can, that's why I put down discussion and/or recommendation. We can discuss it and make a recommendation at Monday's meeting, or we can decide what our recommendation is and then
Well, it's
I'll
not
put it
critical
in
that
the
we
thing.
decide tonight.
No, I agree. I would love to have the others, obviously, give them the opportunity to hopefully watch these interviews. I believe they're going to be available tomorrow, is that right?
Yeah, the
Yeah.
station said that they put them up on YouTube.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm taking it back tonight, Russ is waiting for me.
Oh,
Oh,
great,
okay.
great. I mean, my 2 cents is, I mean, that's up to all of us here, but I think that we could at least make a recommendation to the rest of the board, and we can then say, okay, this is what we've come to a decision on, possibly. What are your thoughts after watching these videos, and/or do you have any further questions that you would like asked prior to making your final decision, you know? But, I mean, obviously, this is now being the second interview for me for these two individuals, I definitely, it's a tough call, but I think I could make a decision tonight on what my recommendation to our other 4 board members would be.
Well, I like the resourcefulness, yes.
Yeah.
But I like the fact that he's gotten several grants and worked
Yeah.
through some of those.
Yeah.
I think
Go ahead, Pete.
both of them have very good pluses to each side. They both got good points to them.
Yeah.
To me, Stephen has a lot more experience, I think, as far as quasi DDA / Main Street / version something else differently to it. So I mean, he's used to doing that kind of work. As far as working with the community, I think you couldn't have a better cheerleader out there as far as the person going around and glad-handing everybody than what she could have, because I think she's very personable and would be with them to that point. Again, going back, I think as far as getting some things done and accomplishing things and staying on task, I think Stephen shows a little bit more tenacity and promise in that way. She had a lot of experience with grants as far as working with the money aspect of it and working with volunteers. I'm not sure as far as the Main Street DDA background, if there's enough of it there.
No
As I
pressure.
lean back, look at you.
Well, I like them both for very different reasons, and I could see strengths in both of them down different avenues, for sure, but I think that he is the bulldog of the two. But, you know, it's nice to have a smiley face in there, too, that would be fresh and different, and I think strong in that way.
I'm not looking to go back the route that we were in years
Right.
past when we were concerned because of all the event planning or the party planners.
Right.
I don't want to go back down that road again.
I would say the gentleman has a kind of business approach to things. He comes with a strong background with what we're looking for, I think. I'd like to see the other members of this board get involved in the decision-making portion of it, though, rather than us make the decision tonight.
Right. In agreement.
Do we have to take a vote on that, or?
We table it?
I mean,
Put it on the
the
agenda for
alternative is,
Monday?
would then call them both back again Monday night and go through the same process all over again?
I don't know if that would really be necessary, being it's on television.
Yeah.
If they want to view it on TV, what do you think?
Right. He's not available to come on Monday.
Right. I think the documentation is here. You know, both have spoken,
Yep.
and the lens has picked it all up.
Yep.
I would like to get them involved.
Yep.
Right. My biggest, I guess, concerns are obviously M24, but the economic strength of the community is a big,
Yeah.
Right.
I don't know what I want to say. It's a worry, and it's also a
Opportunity.
opportunity, and we do have multiple empty buildings and empty lots. That somewhat concerns me, because I think people tend to only look at the downtown and say, oh, we just got one empty
Yeah.
spot. But when you stretch it out for the whole DDA district, there's a lot that needs to be filled or something done, sell homes, try to get a developer in there to do something.
Question is, who can do it best? That's what it comes down to.
My feeling is that he can, so.
But is there any problem in delaying it until
Oh,
making
no.
that decision?
No,
Okay.
no, there's no, I don't think so either.
Need a motion?
Need a motion?
Put it on Monday night's agenda? Is that what you would do?
Well, I've already put it on the agenda
Okay.
for Monday night,
Great.
so.
Okay, good.
Let's do that.
I don't think that we didn't take any action, so I don't think anything is needed.
Do we need a motion?
Um,
Table till
Anybody
Monday?
have any other comments?
I guess just, so I'm sure on what the intent or what the process is, what you're looking for. You're saying you're putting it on the agenda Monday night. So on the agenda for Monday night, is it going to say, we did the interview of the two people and we are interviewing A or B? Or assuming we are recommending one or the other, is that what?
Do you want to make a recommendation tonight, or we can
Well,
just?
that's what I'm asking the process, is that what when you're saying it's gonna be on the agenda and we're gonna do it the Monday night, so are we coming forward with a recommendation? Or are we gonna come forward Monday night with basically, so what are you going to do, looking at the other ones? Hopefully that they had a chance to look at the videos. I'm not sure that they're all gonna look at the video.
Right.
I mean, I would be surprised if,
I don't know that I want to make a
Cool.
recommendation. Can we just place our
Well,
vote
that's
on
why I
Monday?
left it open. Do
Yeah,
you want
place-
I
to?
don't
We
necessarily
could
want
all
to make a
place our, if
recommendation.
we're all gonna be there, we could all place our votes on Monday night.
Yeah,
And
my
I'd
de-
prefer-
my
and it's a
thought-
collective board vote. How's
My
that sound?
decision isn't gonna change.
Nor is mine. I'm pretty solid on what I'm thinking as well, but
Right.
that'll give the opportunity for our other board members to take a look at these interviews, and we could maybe have a little bit more discourse about this as a group, and then we could all take a roll call vote, so.
That's,
Okay.
that's,
All right.
if you could, Sue, I would, if you please, would put an email out again tonight or first thing in the morning to everybody, you know, again, you can go to, you know, wherever, whatever on YouTube you watch the videos.
Do you think it'll be up by mid?
put it up tonight.
Okay, so I'll just say it's available Saturday morning, because I don't think anybody's going to be looking at it.
Well, they could look at it
10 or
tomorrow.
11 o'clock
Yeah,
tonight.
that's true,
Or even Sunday.
right.
But I'll put it out tomorrow morning, that the video is up there on
Great.
YouTube.
Great.
and
Or
just
even
to
Monday, they
go.
can look at it during the days.
Right,
Great.
All right.
that's 3 days
Yeah.
that it would be available. Okay, so, board comments? Sam,
None.
Pete?
Thank you to the search committee. Obviously, it's an arduous task. And again, looking at everything, I think, you know, bringing forth two candidates, I think that are worthy of a decision, so thank you for your work.
I would just say ditto to that. I think they did a great job,
Thanks.
as usual.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Dorothy?
And I appreciate you guys all being here tonight, and I appreciate those two candidates coming.
Yeah, that's a great point. Thanks, everyone, for coming as well. That's a good,
Yeah,
good
thanks,
point.
CJ.
Thanks for sticking around on a Friday night.
Brian.
Okay, and I will need a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion by Schultz, supported by Nichols. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Have a good weekend.
Everyone have a great weekend.
You too.